So when we do this podcast, Kevin and myself will text back and forth, have conversations in the gym, kind of decide which areas we want to talk. Is there something interesting happening in the world? And this week,
I feel like we could record all our conversations in their podcast episodes.
Yeah. If there's a way we could record them and cut them up and make it look good, probably. Anyway. And what he sent me yesterday, there was a couple of things back and forth, but death to self is kind of an interesting one, and I'm going to give a short talk on this, and we're going to go into it. It's that part of ourselves that we always refer to, right? That part doesn't exist anymore. I'll give an interesting allocation. It's especially for men. You'll speak to someone, and they'll tell you what they did, right? Who they were, and they're doing it because not in the sense of, hey, I used to do this, but in the sense of, this is who I am, and trying to kind of live in that past version. And I find oftentimes, I'm going to let Kevin get more into this with athletes, but you see it in the gym. Like someone will come up to you and go, yeah, I used to look like this. I used to do this when I was 20, especially a 40-year-old guy who's just getting back into training. And he'll always refer to what he used to do.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, both of us do this, and we kind of, most of the conversations, let someone have their time, but we kind of say, listen, what you did doesn't matter. What you do today does. Mm-hmm. Who you were, it's great. There's experiences from it, but it doesn't dictate who you are today.
Totally.
Right. Today, you're not the kid who was 20 who could bench press 225 pounds for 50 reps. You're not that kid anymore. Right. You're a 40-year-old man. Doesn't mean that you can't exceed that, or maybe you'll get back to that. But that's not who you are today. And when Kevin sent this to me, it kind of went into a array of thought processes. And one of them is how oftentimes we refer to what we perceive to have been our best time, whether it be our peak in high school, our peak in college, our peak in certain athletic endeavors. And we always want to relive the good times, which I think is human nature, and everybody does that to a point. But when you're trying to work right now in the present and being your best self, we often get stuck in what was instead of looking where we are and being where we are to move forward.
Yeah, being present. Like, I think about, old friends and interactions or something where you'd relive the glory days, right? Yeah. And I don't know. I remember always people would, your 20s are the best. Like, you'd hear people that were older that would say, your 20s, enjoy your 20s. For me, my 20s sucked. It really was not. I mean, I had 3 deployments in my 20s. Like, I was in the military, constantly. Like, I was basically get ready for deployment, deploy, ramp down for deployment, get ready for deployment. That was kind of the life. And then, it was post-college, so, there were some good times at the beginning. But I really just think, like, I'm reminded of so many conversations with guys that I did this too, where you had to remind people, because you're out of shape and you're, in my case, I was out of shape in my 30s. It started at the beginning of my 30s, and then by the end of my 30s, I was like, what the fuck happened? But I would remind people of what I once was.
Yeah.
Because I was embarrassed of what I was currently. And when you're getting back into shape, right, you would go back to, I used to be able to do all this. I used to be able to do all that. Right. So now my mindset becomes, I'm really enjoying where I'm at, and I'm enjoying the process. But I'm also looking to the future to a certain degree where I go, if you like what you see now, wait till you see me in a year.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of where I think so many people, and you can it almost sticks out like a sore thumb whenever you've kind of evolved into this place where like that death to self, like there's a lot of athletes that go through this, and rightfully so. I mean, you dedicate your whole life to a sport. That was what you made it your identity.
Yeah.
You truly identified with it. It was just what you did. It's how you did it. And so a lot of athletes get consumed with that. Some don't. Some actually figured it out because maybe they had mentorship, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a lot more resources in today's sports world. So you have a lot of guys that are like, grabbing onto faith or whatever it is that they're doing to recognize there's more to life than my sport.
Yeah.
But the reality still sits that, I'll use a baseball, right? Because that's what I know. I mean, 12 months out of the year, they're training.
That's what they do.
They're either in sport or training for their sport. And so it's truly their life, right? It's what they do, especially a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
They get up, go to the gym for it, prepare for it. They're taking reps. There's hitting. There's all these different, things that they have to do and schedule that they stick to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
365 days a year. So when that's all gone, now what? How do you replace that?
Yeah.
And that's where they really struggle. And I get it. I live that. And it took me a decade at least. And I was just telling you before we started the podcast where, I met up with a guy that I hadn't seen in a long time from the college days. And that's all he wanted to talk about with me was baseball. And I'm just like, I don't really care. I'm over it. I love the game. I do. I still have a lot of love for it, but it's it's a past thing for me now.
It's an interesting conversation, and again, it's all it is, because I think in all senses, human beings tend to relive what people would call their glory days, the best days I had, or the best times. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not advocating that you shouldn't be proud and reminisce about good times in the past, but you shouldn't dwell on them. They shouldn't be the offset that regulates where you are now. And it's always an interesting factor to me, because again, I'm not someone I've never really been a drinker in my whole life, right? I've had alcohol. I don't have an issue with alcohol. Well, I do have an issue with it, but as far as it comes as a choice, have at it, right?
Another podcast episode.
Yeah, it's a different episode. But it always surprised me, because like food, right, and specifically like alcohol, is I feel a lot of times when we get into a cycle, and I'm not talking about severe addiction. I'm not talking about from a physiological and neurological addiction point. I'm talking about the general guy who can't stop chugging beers, right, or the guy who goes and eats, and I'm that guy. I'm still that guy. There's certain foods that hold a nostalgia for me.
Yeah.
And that nostalgia that you have, I feel a lot of the things we do as we grow older is trying to relive a moment in our life that we had a good, warm feeling from doing a set action.
Yeah, there's a, let's just use food because of that, where there's a setting or some kind of a feeling that came, let's say Thanksgiving meal, right? You sit around the table for a family holiday, there's a nostalgia, there's a warm feeling to that. You smell the turkey, you smell the sweet potato pie, all that stuff, that smell creates that feeling, if you will. So you're trying to recreate that.
Yeah.
And I think that can be said of many things in life.
Which I think is what traditions generally are. It's it's a celebration of a recreation. And some of them, especially if they're far apart. Let me be very specific. If we're talking about Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, there's a heritage and a lineage behind such a celebration. And you can recreate them with your own family, with your kids, your grandkids. So those are great, but those are far apart. They don't happen every day.
Well, I think, but I think the guys I played college baseball with, they were some of my best friends. And we had the amount of laughter. And actually, let me break this down a little bit, because this was something I went through that might actually help someone. But so we had the best of times, man.
Yeah.
I was a drinker in those days. I was a beer guy, but we'd go out, we'd party to have a good time. Somebody did something stupid, you had fun, you laughed at it.
Everyone laughs, yeah.
The next day you laughed at it. You saw the guy that was hungover, and we still went out and played our sport, and we thrived and did all that. But you had these memories and these times where you felt carefree.
Yeah.
And you felt alive. You felt all the energy. You were surrounded by just great guys. And so there was just this place in your life that you were like, that was was the life. That was the way we wanted it, right?
Yeah.
So fast forward in my story, I go, military government path and deployed a bunch of times for, a handful of times. I don't want to say a bunch compared to some of the guys, but I go through these deployments, right? And then my second deployment, towards the end of it, is when I met my wife. And so then you get into a relationship. And then life becomes serious.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not
you rack up responsibilities.
You start racking up the responsibilities. So we get married. We buy a house. A young guy buying your first house, any age, doesn't matter. You don't have to be young. Any age, buying your first house it's a stress point.
It's a big commitment.
It's a commitment. There's this idea that now I'm really truly responsible for something. Yeah. I'm truly tied down to something. And then, oh, by the way, I'm married, so we want to have a family. So we, end up having kids. And then I get this corporate job, right? So I go away from military government space. But I was going through a bunch of just stuff that I couldn't quite wrap my brain around. Yeah. I lost my sense of identity with it. So like baseball, for me, the way baseball ended, it was like, it's a sad story, if I'm being real about the way baseball ended. It took me a long time to overcome it, but like, it did not go at all how I wanted when it came to my sport. And everything was kind of out of my control to a certain degree. At least that's how I perceived it. And so I just felt like a massive failure at baseball, right?
I get that, yeah.
And on the backside of it, I was like, I got hurt, and it just really changed my trajectory. But I never addressed that failure in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now I go to military government space because for me, that was going to replace that void, and I thought I wanted to go federal law enforcement, but like to me, it was like this commitment to this bigger thing. So anyway, I never really addressed like any of that stuff, but what I would do is I'd hang on to the guy that I remembered, like kind of going back to the topic, what I remembered I once was.
Yeah.
Right. So the guy that was in, that 20-year-old, 21-year-old who high on life, had the best of friends around him, playing a game he loved.
Yeah.
The nostalgia of it, the feelings of it, the person that I once was that was carefree, no stress, no anything. And I was constantly trying to find that dude.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with that. And I would like really just like, what happened to that guy? And I don't know if this is a detriment to me or not, but like I remember at Christmas, my parents were down for a visit. I think this was before kids. I don't remember. Something happened. There was this big fight. There was a blow up. Whether it was just like cross family fighting. It was just some like I was like really on edge, and I had this like snap or whatever. And I remember my parents they went and took a walk in our neighborhood, and I met them outside, and I had apologized for what my behavior or whatever. And I remember my mom saying to me, Kevin, you're not the person I want to remember.
Yeah.
You were always just really carefree. Nothing rattled you. Nothing bothered you ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that kind of stuck with me. And I really had to do some just like deep soul searching. And it was a process for me. It was a years long thing to realize like that guy he's not coming back.
Well,
ever.
Not in the same version. I think for me is my 20s were great. Like I had great 20s, but I wouldn't. If I'm honest, I don't want to relive it because I can't relive something that's happened. I don't have the ability to. There's no point in redwelling on it, and I do the best I can today. With that said, I think when you're in your 20s, especially your early 20s, right, you have momentum, right, and experiences still to come.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the feeling that gives you, that new excitement of, I don't know, I'm an experience for the first time, is something people constantly want to relive. Right now, as you get older and you've had said experiences, you realize that experience comes with work, pain, growth, and growth is pain on itself. And there's joy involved and there's happiness. There's a lot of different emotions that come with it. But realistically, is what you're doing is you're trying to recapture a feeling of excitement. Right, and I think especially when I think from your possibly your late 20s into your mid 30s, there becomes a shift, right? And it can be called your middle age cycle, but that shift comes in as life is now set to the largest degree. I've kind of had most of the new experiences I'm going to have. Yes, there will be others, but because of the experiences I've had, those new experiences don't have the same impact. They don't. That you once you've had experiences and you've learned how to deal with life doesn't hit you the same. It doesn't, right?
I feel like I've heard NFL players talk about this a little bit. Like one specifically comes to mind that would say, when he won the Super Bowl, he thought that was going to be like this, like his crowning moment, the pinnacle, right? Because it's the NFL and the Super Bowl. Yeah. Like he won the biggest thing he could win. And then he realized post, win, that was not what he expected. And
it's the same as that.
It didn't really change anything.
It's astronaut syndrome, right? So there's a few instances, and I'll give one that I know of. So Mark Shuttleworth is a billionaire from South Africa, right? He developed a operating system similar to Windows. It's called Ubuntu. Okay. Multi-billionaire. And what he did is his pinnacle for him within his level was he went into space. He did a space flight, right? Nothing major. He was there for, the thing where they a couple of hours, but he was in space. He's considered an astronaut, right?
He did that recently?
I did this probably about 10, 15 years ago, right?
Oh, it's recent.
So what happened then is when he came back down, he fell into a massive depression. The reason he fell into depression is because what else can I do? Like in his mind, I've achieved the pinnacle of what humans can do. How many people can say they're an astronaut? I think the count is less than 100 people can count themselves and say I'm an astronaut out of billions of people on this planet, right? So it's a achievement, right, through his wealth, right? It's not as if he studied to be an astronaut or went through NASA, but through his wealth he achieved something, and he fell into a massive depression. Like, what else is there?
Well, I think people need purpose. Like, that falls into that place of, like, like you said, like, here's this guy, it's a billionaire that, in his mind, that was his purpose. He did it. And now what? Like, what else? What else can I actually do?
What else could I actually achieve? And I think he had quite some major insights in there. And I think, on a smaller, on a different scale, we all go through the same thing, right? Because I remember playing my last rugby match, right? And it was a under 21 match, and I remember one of the coaches saying, "This is going to be the last time that you're probably ever going to play a rugby match." Last time. He said to us, the end of the season, after that year, we could no longer fall into that age category. There was other age categories, but the reality is, as you get older in sports, is the chances of continuing start diminishing. It's pretty exponentially, right? I always
say the circle just gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, it really does. And he said, for most of you, for 90% of you, 99% of you sitting here, this is going to be the last time that you play rugby at this level for your entire lives. Let that sink in for a minute.
Did it?
Right, it did. When he said it, you sit back and obviously you're amped up for the game, but when he said it, I was like, he's right. This is the last guy. I never played rugby since.
Yeah.
Right, it was the last time that I initiated a rugby match.
How old were you?
I was 21.
Yeah.
Right, that's the last time. I was turning 21 that year.
Yeah.
It was the last time that I played a rugby match.
Which, at the time, like, when you think about, I'm 21, I got the rest of my life, but you don't
really equate it to this action, this thing.
Don't. Like, it's hard to process that, and you I remember hearing that too. Like, I think it was in high school, and I heard it where, and I was fortunate, I was going on to play in college, but I remember my coach saying in a regional, like, championship game, like, hey, like, if we lost, that was it. If we won, we move forward. Yeah. This could be some of your last game. And so I just always remember thinking, well, I'm going to play more. But the reality was, like, that was my last, like, real... Like, I played competitive games, but, like, game of significance. That was my last game of significance, and I made the last out of the game, and we lost and went home because I didn't get the hit that everybody thought I was going to come through with. But anyway, that's another story. I go to college, and then I got hurt, and I came back. I played some games, but there's no games after that one that was, like, really mattered.
Yeah.
And so, like... But at the time, I think I took the sport for granted.
Yeah.
I really did. Like, I really, truly never had the gratitude that I should have for being able to play a game that I loved for as long as I played it.
And that's a great point there, because I think that's primarily where we mess up, right? Is part of the nostalgia feeling of those times is, I think at the time that we had it, we were young, we were impressionable, we had momentum. Like I said, is when you're young, that young, you have momentum, right? Everything's ahead of you. It's not, you don't really have that much behind you yet.
I don't know if you felt this way, but I felt like I could do anything.
Yeah,
I felt like superhuman almost. Like, nothing could stop me.
Nothing's going to stop me. But that same feeling is something you should carry forward. That's something you should enact on every single day. Like, I often say this to people, especially if we're talking in an aspect of business. Well, I go, there's nothing you can't do that another person did. Right. You have to also be realistic and realize that they have different experiences to you, and your path is not going to lay out the same. But if a human being did it, you could probably do it. Now, again, limitations in regards to physical activity, where I think it really eats men up, right? Because you things you believe or things you did when you were younger, you don't have the same ability. We are not as quick. Hand-eye coordination is not as quick as 20-year-old. No matter how much I can go train my ass off. Sure. There's certain exceptions to the rules, like a guy like Tom Brady, right, who passed the age of 40. The guy was exceptional, but he's still, I guarantee you, if you start timing in it, is there's a diminishing factor, which is why the guy retires.
And there's a factor that just in youth in general, there was a guy, Sam was telling me about this, that she met at the gym. He's a retired Army Special Forces guy, I guess. Anyway, he was like, I don't know what he said, it was 37, and there was some young, like 28-year-old, same weight, same pack, and they were doing some kind of road march or something, or like a workout maybe, and he's watching this 29-year-old just taking off.
Yeah.
And he's like, I knew I was done what I was doing, everything I could to try to keep up with him, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I realized I'm done.
Yeah. And certain things are aligned to youth, right? Yeah, being younger. Yeah. Certain things are better aligned as you mature in age.
Yeah.
But the reality is you have to meet yourself where you are. This is important. And here's the thing is, I don't want anyone to place this limitation on you, but I'm 45 years old. I'm not going to make the NFL.
No.
Right. And if I'm really honest, when I was 20, I wasn't going to make the NFL either. Right. I'm just kind of putting it out there.
Totally.
I kind of laugh when I remember a specific watching a congressional hearing, right? And this was back when they had the steroid scandal with baseball.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't remember who the congressman was, but he was basically looking at the baseball player going, you mean if now I feel like I've been taken advantage of, because if I could have taken steroids, I would have been in Major League Baseball. Like, no, you wouldn't have.
You wouldn't.
Right. So, but like you said, it's because you feel like that invincible feeling when you're younger. I believe I can do anything. And here's the thing is, I'm not going to tell anybody you can't. I'm like, listen, go do everything you think you want to do, right? Because don't place limitations on yourself. Never have limiting beliefs, because you don't know what you're capable of until you try. Right.
I have it.
Yeah. But in the same breath, right? Life is life, and certain things have to go. So you choose your fight carefully.
That's right.
Choose how you're going to move forward.
So I have a little bit of a direction I want to go with this, where I think a problem that athletes run into. There's one of their greatest strengths that athleticism or sports gives athletes is the belief in themselves and the belief that we can do anything.
Yeah.
And it also comes at a fault. But I'll share a story real quick. And I don't know if you'll ever listen to the podcast, but I played with a guy my freshman year of college that got drafted in the top, I think he was the third pick overall in the draft.
Yeah.
And I remember, he was just he was a pitcher, and he was just lights out. He threw, at that time, throwing 98 miles an hour was a big deal. Today, they measure it a little bit different, so guys are throwing 100 all the time. But anyway, he legit threw 98, and then he had a really good curveball and changeup, and he was intimidating to face.
Yeah.
Just I was 18, 19 years old facing this guy as a first-round draft pick. And I remember facing him for the very first time at the inter squad. I don't want to say I was scared, but there's this feeling of holy shit, he throws really hard, and it gets on you really fast. And so you're you walk in and you're just a little initially intimidated by that.
Yeah.
But to face a guy like that, you have to get that out of your head and just believe I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I'm not. But in my head, that's what I had to believe, right? To be able to even have a chance. So anyway, my whole reason for that example is that's what gives the athlete the edge. Yeah. Okay. The belief system in themselves. You don't allow yourself to entertain thoughts that it's not going to go your way for your sport.
Yes.
Because you can't, because that's failure, if you will.
Yeah.
But what that does to us, there's a couple aspects of what that ultimately does to hurt us in a negative way post-sport, where let's use the first one of, I have a belief system in myself that I can do anything. And you think because of how you were in your sport, when it came to that sport, you picked it up pretty fast.
Yeah.
Because you're pretty good at your sport. You were talented, right? So now your expectation management gets a little skewed, because when it takes you time to do something, and this was my story, when it took me time to figure out how to do something, I was like, fuck that, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because it took me too long to learn.
Yep.
Well, that's a bad trait.
It is.
Right? And then the other aspect of it is in my mind, I said this recently where when I started training Muay Thai, I'm going to be a professional Muay Thai fighter. I'm going to be that good. And then they're like, no, dummy, you're 40 years old. You can't do that. Or however old I was when I started. And so you have to like become realistic with stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I think I had a train of thought I was going with on the other negative consequence of it, but basically in my mind, I think what you really have to understand is like, that sport gave you a good, strong foundation and belief system that you can do anything. Mm-hmm. But post sport, like you have to become accepting of the new you, right? I'm not like you talked about the fast twitch muscles, like they slow down. Right. And that's okay. Like embrace that. Yeah. Enjoy the growth. Enjoy the journey. Because you're not the person you once were.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And it doesn't mean you can't be the best version of where you are. But I often feel, again, and this is human nature. What we're not talking about some magic line. It's a state of mind.
Yeah.
Because in one sense, I can tell you, never lose the young version of yourself that believes he can do anything.
Agreed.
But at the same time, relay all the experiences, the knowledge, everything you've learned, and choose how you progress yourself carefully and with real thought. Because when you're younger, you're like, it's head first. It's head first. When I was younger, you tell me to go do something, my head, I didn't really think, I just did. You have the ability as you grow older and experiences start falling behind you.
Right.
You have the ability to still have the same mindset of I can do anything, but now strategically choose how I approach these and go, that's a good option. That's not gonna that one's probably not gonna work out. You go and find the best options for you. And when it comes to health and fitness, is if you haven't consistently trained, right? And to a large degree, I'm not talking about, there was maybe a couple of years you didn't, or you were kind of active and you didn't. I mean, you didn't train. For 20 years, you did nothing.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back into the gym. And we just saw it now. It's February. We saw it in January. We saw this rush of everybody going to the gym, New Year's resolution, new me. And we've got the fall off already. You saw it happen a couple of weeks back. The fall off happened pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, again, you've set this expectation of what I'm going to do. You've set a time limit on it. You've put a date on it. You've read it. You've already set yourself up to fail because it's not strategic. It's not really meeting yourself where you are.
Right.
It's we're doing this currently. So I love training. Like, I like going to the gym. It's that 2-hour break that I get in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I love the way it makes me feel. I do. I like it. And I think to a large degree, you should do something active every day.
Agreed.
However, heavy, concise weight training, depending on your body type, age, there's a lot of different factors, may not benefit you if you do it 7 days a week.
Yeah.
It may not. Right? Some people do okay with that. Again, everybody has to find the mechanism works. So we're trying something now, and it's super difficult, is train 2 days on, take a day off. Right? So that you allow your body time to heal. And I'd implore anybody to go read into a bodybuilder from the 70s. He was in Arnold's era, Tom Platz. Mm-hmm. Tom Platz was known as Quadzilla. He had still today, his leg development is beyond what most guys are achieving today, right? So that was his call to fame. And he moved down to California after being a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And it's like, he won his local shows. He's now on his way to becoming there wasn't the same level of professional bodybuilder. It wasn't classified the same, but he's going to become a pro. He's going to go compete in the Miss Olympia. And I'm going to move to California. I'm going to dye my hair blonde. I'm going to get the blonde girlfriend. I'm going to live the lifestyle. I'm going to be like Arnold. Arnold Schwarzenegger, right, because of his body type and his mindset and things that worked for him, 7 days a week, he was in the gym every day. He trained hours on end. Right?
He like 3 or 4 hours at a time.
Yeah, he had and it worked for him. That was his method that worked for him. Tom Platz went in, trained with Arnold, did everything. Dyed his hair blonde, got the blonde girlfriend, or in his case he was blonde, got the blonde girlfriend, did everything Arnold did, trained with Arnold every day. And about a month or two in, is like, I feel like shit. I look like shit. His muscle structure started depleting. He didn't feel as good. It was like, this isn't working. And he was so depressed, he took a break. He's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he went away. He just ate. He just literally took a week off. He just ate food. He looked at him and was like, oh my God, I look amazing. And it clicked. He's like,
I need rest.
His doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And he applied a different mindset in regards to how he trains.
Makes sense.
And then all of a sudden, that his body responded immediately. Everybody is different, right? And you've got to find the method that works. And the reason I'm even bringing that up is that mindset of being able to look as you can't go do the same thing. And sometimes you can. Sometimes you can do the same things you did when you were 20 and you'll get the same results. I rarely see it.
Yeah.
Right. You might do the same things, but you're going to have to do them slightly differently.
Yeah.
If you're starting from scratch after not training, don't go, oh, well, when I was 20, I benched 225, so I'm going to do it today. Right. Start slow. Like, kind of build yourself up. Allow yourself that ability to build. I'm not saying limit. Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't limit yourself, but allow yourself the knowledge and experience of the way you've come from to say, okay, I need to meet myself where I am today.
Totally.
When was the last time I was in a gym? Yeah. Have I done this for a while?
Yeah.
Should I be doing these things? How is my hip movement? Do I have any injuries setting? Right. What chronic conditions do I have? Have I been smoking? Those questions.
I saw in the mainstream gym that we go to, some trainers letting clients that hadn't been in the gym in a long time load up the weight, and it's like, as a and I don't want to beat up on trainers, but it's like, here's a guy with this big pot belly loading up 225 on the bench that hasn't worked out in a year probably, and he's doing what he used to do, and okay, cool, you can actually move the weight, but what are you actually achieving with loading up the weight when you haven't touched it in so long? The whole idea is that especially if you're coming back after a long stretch, you have to use judgment, because if you do stuff, you're going to be sore.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be so sore that you can't do something the next day.
Yeah.
So I do agree with easing into it. I don't think you should come in and going back to the old ways. A couple of thoughts here real quick. So I think the reason people fail on the New Year's resolutions is they didn't address the root cause of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, the reason you're struggling to keep up with your commitment of I'm going to get back in shape, the new year, new me, the reason you're failing at that is because you haven't addressed the actual root cause of the problem, which is your mindset around fitness and health. Yeah. Okay, it's really a real thing. And you have to want it enough. You have to dive into that piece of it. And I think where people go wrong, okay, so if I haven't addressed the root cause of the problem, and then I'm comparing what I once was, okay, and so I try to do what I used to do, and it doesn't go well, and then I'm sore as shit. I can't do anything.
And then I stop anyway.
And then I just stop, because what's the point?
Yeah.
Okay. Or 6 weeks in, I haven't achieved the results that I want. I lost 10, 15 pounds, but I still don't look what I want to look.
Yeah.
So there's all these factors that quit. So it's really the root cause being the mindset and addressing that.
Yeah.
And then giving yourself, and we've talked about this on the podcast many times, giving yourself grace in the journey and the process to say, all right, so today, I may have only been able to walk on a treadmill for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's what you did. That's your movement.
Yeah.
So then tomorrow, come in and you can only do 10 minutes again. Okay. So you only did 10 minutes, but you moved.
And it may be something. It may be that for a while.
It might be, and my journey with my knee problems. I've had, years of sports injuries and neglect to my body and not actually getting things resolved or looked at or taken care of, and so I still continue to have the feet and knee struggles, but I trained through it and worked around it. And from where I was when I first started training with you 2 years ago to where I am today, it's huge difference.
An interesting fact on that. So, and this is again also understanding that you have to do what works for you, and having an understanding for that. So when Kevin does legs, right, and he does a leg workout, because of the knee issues, there's two factors here. Is the heavier the weight goes, the more danger and fear he has innately in him of hurting himself, especially because he has an existing healed injury that he can feel, right? So when we, for instance, let's say we're on a hack squat, right? If we've got 245s aside, right? We would do. Now the difference is I've never had knee issues, so I'll go up to 5 plates and I'll go all the way down. Right, when I say all the way down, my ass is all the way down.
You're clicking the bottom of the rack.
That's to do, but I don't have the same problem as him. Right, so and there's a point to the reason I'm saying this. So then, how I explain this to Kevin, right, and how he's figured this out for himself and gotten the results in his leg growth as well, is sometimes when you want to apply weight, right, you have to work around the injuries you have, because as you grow older, and this is also another factor of it, is when you're younger, you don't have these injuries. Yeah. As you grow older, you accumulate wear and tear.
Yeah.
Your knees, your elbows, tendons, they're not the same as they used to be. So that doesn't mean you avoid That means you find a mechanism to work the motion and work the muscle. So what Kevin would do is, if he loads up 4 plates, he doesn't go as low as I do. He doesn't. But what he does do is he engages us to a point that I can see in his legs that he's engaging his muscle, and then he keeps it there, and he works that area, because that's the capability that he is. Now, could he go all the way down with his knee injury? He probably could, but the risk of re-injuring his knee is exceptionally high. So what he's done is he's found a way to work around the problem. And the result of that is, I think you've picked about at least 3 or 4 inches on your leg since we started.
I agree.
Right. So, you know, you can see,
if nothing else.
You can see the growth in Kevin's legs, right? Now, that's specifically, yeah, go ahead.
Was really quick on that point. I had to overcome my legs to a certain degree, because when Sam and I met, that was post baseball and military days, where I still had big quads, you know, glutes and hamstrings. But I was, you know, with baseball, you're squatting, I don't even know how many times, like a ton of times a day, in addition to the workouts you do. So I just had naturally like big, probably not as defined legs, but I had bigger legs. And so I lost those because I didn't train my legs. Even through my 30s, when, like, for me, it was like this, like going into my early 30s, I would train 5 to 6 days a week, and then it became 4 to 5 days a week. You know, and I had stretches of time where I wasn't training, but I wasn't usually that long. I was still doing...
You were still active.
I was still active, just not the way I needed to be. But I neglected working my legs because it hurt, and I hated it, right? So I did lose size and mass, because that's something you have to work at. And so back to today, present day, I found that groove, if you will.
Yes.
The sweet spot, as you like to call it in the gym, where on hack squat's a good example. You're right. I don't go all the way down. I could, but it's just, puts a lot of tension and pressure on the inner and outer and the kneecap for me. And so even I have to find the right spot with my feet.
Yes.
I've even found certain places with leg press that I have to find my feet in the right spot. And I get that groove where I know I can just, I don't know, I can just feel it out and engage the right window. I don't go all the way up, and I don't go all the way down, and it works for me.
It's what matters.
Proven. It has shown that it works. And say when we do leg extensions, right? Like, you know, I think sometimes in I training with you, like your strength is really superior, I guess. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like I have to be smart that I can't keep up with you in regards, and I have to properly warm up myself, because you've seen me how many times we're on the extension, I'll put 10 pounds on there, and it's lightweight, but it's not about the weight, it's about the movement to warm it up properly. And because when I come down on the leg extension, I put tension on that top. As we increase weight, I spot myself there, you know, because I'm working through that, where I'm getting full extension, I bring it down. And the whole point is, like, if I sat here and dwelled on what I used to be, I would not be where I am today.
And you would just put yourself into this dwell of depression of comparing yourself to what you were. And here's the factor on this. What we're talking about is essentially ego.
Yes.
Because what happens is we dive into the ego point of what I used to do. And I mean, if you're in a gym, and this is, again, if you're in the gym, I have all the respect in the world for you. You know, and this is not to crux on everybody, but I can see the difference between someone who is lifting who is inexperienced versus someone who is ego lifting for everyone else in the gym, but not for their own benefit. Right? You can see it from a mile away. Packing, you know, the amount of times that I'll see someone pack a leg press. I love calling the leg press is the middle-aged man's squat rack, right? Because it allows you to put on an enormous amount of weight and not do anything, right? And literally train your joints. And you see it often with especially older guys. And again, if you're an older guy, if you're not, you got to try and activate the muscle, right? Not activate your ego towards everybody else, because that's not going to benefit you. You got to activate the muscle. Now, I'm the first person to tell you that, listen, I'm not going to say to you that you have to do a full extension. You need to find a range of movement that works for you. However, watching a guy hop onto a leg press, pack it full of weight, do a set, bring it down less than 2 inches, and then rack it up and walk away without packing the weights, you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for everyone else. Like, that's not going to benefit you. And that's one of the things, as Kevin was talking about, is like, I've got a history of powerlifting strongman. I've moved enormous amounts of weights. And I've consistently done that over a period of time. So I know, and I'm getting to that point. I've got old man strength, right? Like, I'm an older guy and I'm strong, right? I know I can move some weight,
right?
And instead of him trying to keep up with me, what he does is he looks at what I move, right? Finds his own mechanism, and then engages where he can. Some exercises, some places we train, Kevin's with me, sometimes exceeds the weights I do. He gets more reps than me, right? There's particular days he'll come in, he's having a good day, he'll push those weights because he knows what his capability is.
That happened the other day with shoulders.
Yeah.
Last week I told you, man, my shoulders fucking really bothering me. And we did, what was it, the overhead press? And we both kind of like, it was like, is it me or is the weight light today? But like, we had a good day.
It's a good day.
And I started off a little rough, but I ended up having a good day.
Yeah, and those days you enhance. And then other days when he realizes, like, listen, I'm not going to keep up here. It's just about activating muscle. It's just about getting the most out of the workout. And this is the same mindset you need to take in. If you're consistently comparing to what you used to do, I don't even compare myself to what I did last week.
You can't.
Right, because last week I didn't have a niggling, a little bit of a shoulder tweak. This week I do. And there's, I've trained long enough to realize something's always going to be tweaking. So I've got to kind of work what I can.
How do you work through it? How do you adjust?
And you've got to find ways. We've said this before in the podcast. I'll do a workout with 10 pounds and you get a great workout. I'll do a workout with 500 pounds and get a great workout.
Yeah, when we grab lightweights, I find myself going, oh, this is going to burn.
Yeah, it's going to hurt.
Real quick, I think another component that we that I appreciate is that last Saturday I told you, and I think it was Saturday a cold day maybe, I don't remember, but
it was pretty cold. It was cold.
It was chilly, right?
Yeah, it was chilly.
So anyway, like we did the dynamic back workout. That's what it was. And we were doing the rope pulls, and I remember telling you, I was like, so we had 2 plates aside on that, and normally in my brain, like, that's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
It was when I was moving it, I was like, God, man, I remember telling Jay, like, this feels really heavy for me. I don't know what's going on with that. And then I noticed, like, my hands, like, all my joints were like really hurting.
Yeah.
And I was like, even in my like joints of my fingers, and then I was like trying to figure out, like, well, was this from my baseball days? Because the left hand is the hand that I caught. What was it? And so we start talking through this, and you're like, well, are you taking something different? And it dawned on me. I was like, well, I did add a supplement for joint health, and I was like, maybe that's what's getting me, because I had taken it previously and it caused some joint pain. I stopped and the pain went away. So you're like, hey, well, what have you been taking? So we talked through that, and I decided, like, oh, let me remove that again. And I did. Guess what? The joint pain goes away. So it's weird that a joint supplement caused me joint pain. But the whole point is, we talked through in a workout where I did have to go with less weight.
Yep.
I did have to adjust because my joints were just so painful that day because of the supplement that I was taking. And I didn't have quite as good a workout, in terms of like weight, but I still got a lot from it. Yes. I still pushed through it. I still trained through it. I had, my trusted partner, if you will, helping me identify what was going on, and we kept on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to recognize as you age. Old injuries, old things, like this maintenance stuff that you do, the movement is what's critical. Yeah. That movement never stopping, like constantly working through it.
If I had to relay this back, is if there was a possibility of having the knowledge and understanding I have of this now when I was younger, my results would have been exponential.
Sure.
Because that's the part where youth loses, right? Is because in youth you have the youth, but what you do is, if you could apply those discipline aspects of understanding certain things, which come with time, right? But the important thing here is, we're applying it to training, but this kind of applies to everything in life. You have to put yourself in the moment of where you are. Is when you're starting or maintaining something. So our goal, right, when you're younger, and I'll say this simply, if you're younger and listening to this, your goal when you're younger is to pack on as much muscle as you can. And let me explain why. I'm not saying, listen, you need to go become a professional bodybuilder. I'm saying you need to pack on as much muscle as you can. Because what will happen is, between your testosterone is going to peak at around 25, 26. right? And right now, because of external factors, the life we live in, your testosterone as a 20-year-old is already lower than what mine was at 20.
Yeah.
Way lower than your grandfather's was. So you're already behind.
Yeah.
Pack on as much muscle as you can. Then what's going to happen is as you start entering your 30s, your testosterone, your free testosterone is going to start diminishing every single year. And that's going to continue. The only way that you can exceptionally really keep that alert is you keep your food really good, right? Like make sure your nutrition is on point. You're eating enough food, eating enough protein. And now your job is no longer to pack on muscle. And I'm not saying you can't pack on muscle, but you really only have a short period of time in your 20s where you really, honestly, more in your teens, where you really pack on muscle.
Yeah.
Probably I'd say to about the age of 25, 26. From that point on, it's now about maintaining muscle.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, you can pack on some extra mass. You know, a guy like Ronnie Coleman, you know, and again, Ronnie Coleman's not a normal guy. Ronnie Coleman is a freak of nature. Right. When we're talking about Ronnie Coleman, a guy like Lee Priest, these are exceptional specimens of human beings. Right. Ronnie Coleman managed to pack on quite a bit of mass from his first Olympia to his last Olympia. Right. He packed on a ton of mass. But we're also talking about a guy who was eating something ridiculous like 600 grams of protein a day. Right. He was eating 3 times the amount of protein most people do.
Yeah.
He's not the norm.
Right.
For us regular Joes, your job from as soon as you hit a certain point, I'd say that's between 30 and 35, your job now is to hold on to tissue.
Right.
And aggressively hold on to tissue. Because what will fuck you as you age is loss of muscle.
Yeah.
As your body starts dropping muscle, your ability to keep yourself up, to move, diminishes greatly. We always thought we had this understanding that, oh no, but as you naturally age, these things drop. They don't. What drops is, we spoke about it now, you start doing things differently, or you look for shortcuts, because as you age, things hurt. Your knees hurt.
Yeah.
You still have to go work in a leg workout. You know, when I say Kevin doesn't go all the way down, he ain't doing a 3-inch drop.
Yeah,
he's dropping.
There's range.
Right, he's got range.
I'm breaking the plane.
Right, and what I see guys as they age do is they start bullshitting themselves, especially on legs.
Absolutely.
Right, because legs hurt.
Yeah.
Right. You will never ever convince me of anything else. If I see a guy with well-developed legs, and I'm talking all the way, quads, hamstring, calves, I'm telling you, that's a guy who can hustle. Yeah. That's a guy who can work, because legs, it's not an easy build, right? And yes, you've got there's certain people with genetic anomalies, but I'm talking about a well-rounded quads, hamstrings, everything together.
Yeah.
He put work in,
For
right?
sure.
That's a guy who can hustle. Now, if you can get over that, everything else is easy. And as we age, with men, it was always thought that our leg development is the first thing to go. Your legs will start dropping, right? It's absolute bullshit. The reason they drop is we get lazy. We get complacent. We stop using. We have injuries. We don't work around it. Is your job, right, is to aggressively hold on to your tissue. How do you do that? You manage testosterone levels. You eat more protein than you think you need.
Yeah.
Right? You take the right supplements and vitamins to make sure your system is healthy. You drink enough water to run those processes through your body.
Yeah.
And you get to the gym and you fucking train legs. And legs over everything else. Like, everything else, I'm an advocate for training your full body, but legs is your priority.
I remember saying a comment to you a long while ago that I said, like, I hate leg day, and you're like, you need to change that. You need to love leg day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you're right, I gotcha. And I do have to say, like, there's times where I'm like, God, this fucking hurts, but I do enjoy leg day, because like what I have enjoyed, like starting to see veins, more veins in my legs. Yeah. I'm like, man, you got to earn that shit. Like, nobody hands you those veins, right? You got to earn that. And that's like, they're not as much as I would love, but like, I feel like the message that needs to be said here when it comes to the legs and the approach. I told you my mother-in-law fell recently. It hurt. Broke a bone. Those slip, trips, and falls are the biggest killer of the elderly.
Massive, right? Woman is 10 times worse than men.
And when she fell, we got the call. We were concerned. Now, thankfully, it's not as bad as we thought it originally was when the first phone call came through. But the idea is that, like, my mother has fallen hard. She was very lucky. She, did not realize she was falling, so she wasn't able to brace for the fall. So she did not have a problem like she could have. My mother-in-law's fallen a few times. But what's the common factor? Well, legs aren't strong.
Bone density,
grip strength.
Yep.
Things that we talk and train about.
Yeah.
So as you age, like the importance of being able, like I remember I fell in the garage one time. I think it was Reagan or Jordan, Brandon. One of them was in a car seat, right? And I had the seat itself and like a scoop carriage type carry, and I was wearing like Crocs or something. And it was a rainy day, and the garage had some water in it.
Yeah.
And a concrete garage floor with no slip resistant material, and it's very slick.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see the water. Maybe I don't remember.
And you slipped.
My foot went straight out from underneath me. Basically, I almost did like a split, and I landed hard on my right kneecap. And it set me back a while.
Yeah, I felt it as you said it.
Yeah, man, it was rough. And I was limping for a good little bit, and I'm stubborn, so I didn't go to a doctor. But anyway, it's things like that. Like, and even at that time, like as bad as my knees were, then I still was not like I wasn't completely weak there, yeah. But that did set me back.
Yeah.
So anyway, my whole idea now is like where, slip, trips, and falls is the killer. But like if your feet and legs, or like in grip has strength, like you're in a much better, space to be able to recover from that, to be able to like absorb that. The idea is that like you're taking care of your legs and your grip strength so that one day when you're old, like you still have strength to hold yourself up from falling.
Yeah, and good resources for this is Andrew Huberman talks about this on in his research in his podcast. Peter Attia talks about it as well. And the reason for bringing these things up is those mindsets of really zoning into those things that you need to focus on, right, is all about where I am, not about where I was. It's about who you are today. And, these lessons fall into everything where you are. Your relationship today isn't where it was yesterday.
That's right.
You can't do the same things you did with your wife when you were 30 and expect the same results.
Right.
You may have to put a little bit more work in. You may have to change the way that you do things. Like you've got to adapt. Your business is not running the same. The economy, like your body, changes. Structures changes, competition changes, invents of new technology is always consistently changing.
Yeah.
So you have to adapt where you are today. Take the lessons from the past. Like, there's good lessons in there, but don't get stuck into the past so much that this is what I'm going to enact every day. It's a new day. It's a new time. And again, we've said this countless times in this podcast. There is no past. There's only now. There's only what you do right now. Take the lessons, but meet yourself where you are today.
Yeah, I call that, my final thought would be like, I call that grace. Like, give yourself grace of where you are. Shit happens, life happens. It's not like you set out to do it on purpose. So let go of what was and embrace the moment today. And then each time just get a little bit better,
That's cool.
It doesn't matter the standard. Like, the standard's what you have.
Yes.
And it's not a competition with you and anybody else. It's literally what you did today. And like, some days you might have setbacks. Some days, you look back to the week last week, and it's not as good as it was. That's okay. You still moved. You still moved your body, right? So give yourself grace, let go of what was, and embrace where you are, and just know that tomorrow is only going to be that much better.
I think leave it right there. I like that.